Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road. Happy Friday night. Not a great way to start the weekend, that was it. Norwich City have been held to a 1-1 draw here this evening against Oxford United in a game that probably encapsulates why they're not going to be finishing in the top six this season for me. All of the traits and all of the characteristics of maybe of this Norwich City side, I think that we've seen over the course of this campaign, the inconsistency, the injuries, the issues, all bubble to the surface this afternoon. This evening, you put them all into a big cauldron, you bubble it up, and I think you get tonight as kind of a microcosm of their campaign. Really, another draw. It's now one in four here. It's more points dropped from a winning position. It was yeah, really, really frustrating night, wasn't it? And it's a bad result. There's no way you can dress it up as anything other than a really bad result for Norwich City. They needed to win tonight. I felt they needed to take probably 6 points from these two home games. And look, we know what the Championship is like. You can never fully write anything off or be conclusive on anything. But I think at this stage where Norwich City are at, I just think there's too much ground with 10 games to go, too much of a points tally, too many teams between them and the top six, too many circumstances that need to happen. And equally, I just don't think they're consistent enough or capable enough of putting a run together to get the points that they need. I think they're basically going to need to win six or probably seven of their last 10 to do that. I really don't see how this team is going to do that with the games they've got coming up. And ultimately, we're probably reflecting on them being the victims of their own downfall because they should have won at Ewood Park. They could have won tonight. They should have beaten Derby. And in fact, this game was very similar to Derby. One win from four here at Carrow Road. And again, it just encapsulates where they are at the moment, I think, and in terms of where this journey is at, where they are on that roadmap. And yeah, just an incredibly frustrating night from beginning to end, really, barring a really good opening 5 minutes. And I think we saw probably the Norwich City TM, the Norwich City trademark tonight. It was start brightly, create a really good goal, score a brilliant goal to watch on the eye, brilliant pass from Callum Doyle into Kellen Fisher's path, lovely ball across for Josh Sargent to tap home his 12th goal of the campaign. And then they regress, that sort of thing that we've seen become increasingly clear in that game, in their games and their performances. We saw it at Watford even and they won that game 1-0. We saw it against Derby here. We've seen it in various other instances. They score a goal and they regress into this shape, and I think whether that's a mentality thing or it's certainly not what they are encouraged to do. You listen to Johannes ever since he's joined the club, really, and he's always spoken about the importance of going and grabbing that second goal in games. They haven't done that. They've conceded more equalising goals than any other team this season. I think it's 5 more than Sunderland. And actually taking the leading games, that's a sign of being a good team. Not keeping them is clearly not a good sign of being a good team, but it feeds into probably this inconsistency pot that we're swirling constantly with Norwich City. They work so hard. I've said this a few times this season, but they work so hard to get themselves ahead in games, and then they're undone by really stupid goals, really soft goals, and that was the case tonight. Will Volks has launched in a long throw. Stacey has headed it off the back of Slimani. It's gone into Harris, and it's a simple finish at the front post. And it's, just classic Norwich City this season, unfortunately. And from there, Oxford came here today, changed their shape. They played in a 5-3-2. They sort of watched maybe Derby and the games that Norwich City have played here this season against the back five. And Norwich have struggled on the whole to break them down, and that was the case for the remaining, 70 minutes of this game, where Norwich huffed and puffed but didn't really construct enough, barring probably a late chance for Borja Sainz to ever really win this game. And that, again, is a reoccurring trend where, 15 shots on goal. There was one from Cianats, two from Cianats, actually, one from range, one that fell for him. There was obviously the Sainz one. I'm struggling to really construct anything in terms of the second half beyond those. And yeah, it was just they were just passive. I thought, the midfield three of Sorensen, Wright, and Slimani, I think. And look, clearly there's mitigating circumstances here. Kenny McLean's just back. You have to manage his load. Emi Marcondes, similarly, they still seem to be managing him, and that was a sort of a load issue that's kept him out for a prolonged, well, not for a prolonged period, but certainly for a period of time as well. Obviously, no Marcelino Nunez, so I think they're probably stuck, really. But I think when you play Sorensen and Slimani as well, but particularly Sorensen and Wright. You've got two very similar profiles of players there who are, by their nature, deeper lying. By their nature, they are tickers. They don't really inject intensity, and they're not runners. They're not creators. And I think we saw quite a static, rigid Norwich City shape tonight, particularly in midfield. And you just didn't have that movement from the middle of the pitch. It was Cianats dropping deep, and it was Sainz dropping deep to try and engineer something and to find Stacey and Fisher. It wasn't a lot of creativity or progression coming from that midfield position. And I think maybe what we should have seen, easy to say with hindsight, but either Sorensen and Wright and probably a Schwartau and then maybe Slimani. But even then, I think you're asking then a lot of players to try and create something in a formation that just felt very rigid and very sameish in that middle of the pitch. And it wasn't really until Kenny McLean came on with half an hour to go that Norwich City looked like creating anything, had any sort of energy about them in the middle of the pitch. I thought Wright played well on the whole. It wasn't a bad performance. I just think there were two players in there that really should have accounted for one and were doing the same job and doing the same thing. And it's not to pick out those two players, but it was just the composition of that midfield, that blend of that midfield that wasn't right. And obviously Norwich City without what I think everyone would regard as their best midfield, McLean, Nunez and Marcondes, without any of those being in the team, which has been such a consistent trend throughout this season. It's probably little wonder, really. And again, it was a similar issue when they went to Hull and albeit obviously rescued a point that day. There were similar issues in terms of that midfield three being too rigid. And, if that's the case, you need Cordoba, you need Doyle to do a little bit more as centre-backs to get them up the pitch. And, it just never really happened. I thought they did work the wide areas quite well. Clearly, Callum Fisher's cross for Josh Sargent is an example of that. I felt Fisher was really good tonight, actually, really bright. I thought Cordoba was really good as well. He's got this brilliant ability where I think if you put a cigar in his hand, it would that composure that he plays with, that ability to play with the ball, but equally what he allows Norwich to do, it allows to get the fullbacks much higher, allows them to be a little bit deeper in their shape. He's obviously brilliant on the cover. We saw that in the first half, and that's been I think a really big positive of the last few weeks, how he stepped in and really taken it. Clearly, the pre-game disruption, Shane Duffy turning up late is not ideal, and clearly, they had a back four of Fisher, Duffy, Cordoba and Doyle as the left back ready to go. That didn't happen tonight because of obviously a pre-match incident. Shane Duffy turning up to the ground late, no excuses. We know what the Norwich City culture is. We saw it with Jose Cordoba. There's maybe a judgment call to be made on whether you do that on the day of a game and so close to kickoff, but I can completely understand why you need to probably prevent there being any exemptions from the rule, and why you need to, as they did with Cordoba, come down with really strong on that. You cannot have senior players turning up late, irrespective of reasoning or whatnot. It's not a good state of affairs, particularly when you're throwing on, obviously, no Angus Gunn tonight, no Marcelino Nunez tonight, already a long injury list. Jurasek, Dobbin, Kruzene, Mahovo, Gibbs, Forson, Forsyth, so many players who are out. It's just incredibly frustrating, and I think it's probably just a season that's going to run away from Norwich City now. In truth, look, credit to Oxford. I thought they weren't ambitious in the way that they played. They are scrapping for every single point. You can see that. I thought they defended their box really well, really narrow, shut off basically all of the central avenues that Norwich City had to try and go and create and trying to go and attack the game. But again, to be honest, it feels like it's become a little bit simplistic for teams to come to Carrow Road to play a back five, knowing that they're going to get an opportunity to score a soft goal, to then sit on that. And Norwich don't at the moment have the answers where they can conjure up really good spells of possession in the whole. And they had 77% of the ball tonight. That's the most of the ball that they've had in any game this season. But again, I go back to sort of my description of it. You can have, I think, really proactive, positive possession that conjures up opportunities, or you can have stale possession. I felt tonight there was too much stale possession, probably too little answers. And again, a lot of that was because of the issue of a lack of movement and the rigid nature of their shape, I felt, in terms of midfield and just the lack of running. And again, there was so much onus on Cianats, who again I thought was bright tonight, and I felt did offer a lot of that movement. But you look at how deep him, Sainz and Sargent had to come into the game at points to really try and link it, to really try and get themselves in the game. And that really underscores the struggles tonight. And, the most intensity really that Norwich had, the most movement they had was when Kenny McLean came on. And probably when they were chasing the game in stoppage time. And even then, it just felt a little bit desperate. It felt like they'd run out of time. Clearly, the big chance of the night was Borja Science, wasn't it, on 90 minutes? I actually think, and I haven't seen a replay of this, but in real time, it looked like he was offside. Obviously, no flag was raised, though, so it would have counted. He runs through, and, I think you'd put decent money on Borja Science to convert that chance more often than he doesn't. It's probably reflective of where he's at the moment. I thought he struggled tonight in terms of some of his decision-making, in terms of, there were moments where I felt it opened up for him to have a shot, and he tried to overplay, and there were points where maybe he overplayed where or shot when he could have played. And and it just feels like maybe that some of that confidence that we saw early on in the campaign with him has evaporated a little bit. And it's natural. I think when you look at the season he had, particularly you go back to last year for the playoffs, really, he was on the bench, wasn't even in the team, didn't make Norwich City starting lineup at Elland Road. You look at his elevation this season to become a real key player, to score the goals that he has, to then get the treatment that he has. He's been doubled up on, tripled up on at times. He's been kicked, he's been pulled, he's been brought to the ground. And championship teams do anything that you can to stop players, and he's really struggled, I think, to adapt his game to that. And clearly there's a very good player in there. I've got to be honest, I found him quite frustrating this year, even when he was scoring goals. I think his general play and that decision-making hasn't quite been where it needs to be. I actually thought his best game this season was against Stoke a couple of weeks ago, where we saw that creativity, we saw that right blend, and there was a real mix between how he played in the final third. And again, that's not to separate him out, because he's not the reason that Norwich City haven't won this game tonight, albeit for that. And actually, I felt the changes came probably maybe slightly the wrong time. Again, always easy to say in hindsight, but I felt Norwich were actually beginning to get a little bit of steam up and beginning to construct opportunities, and probably the rhythm of it and the disruption. And Oxford's changes came as well, just prevented that a little bit, and just added to the frustration. And I think that really from this season is going to feel what has happened. It's going to feel like a missed opportunity. Look, you can look at it both ways. You can look at where Norwich City are at, and you can feel, I think, quite justifiably that maybe with the opportunities that they've had in recent weeks, Blackburn here tonight, Derby, Preston, that they should have more points on the board, that they should be, if not even in their top six mix, then they should be significantly higher. And I think that's fair. I think that's a just view that you can have. The flip side is you look at the injury list, and clearly, look, there are questions that need to be asked now about how that has got to the extent that it has, how you can have so many players out, and because it's been so costly to their season, it's hampered their season. I've said this stat before, but October, Stoke away, that's the last time you have to, or that Norwich City played with that quartet: McLean, Nunez, Sainz, Sargent. Norwich City were always going to need those four available constantly throughout this campaign to really push into that top six mix, and to put on a level of performance that was consistent enough for them to get results. I think we see so often the game picture that we saw tonight. That's the game picture that Norwich City want, and they have lots of the ball, and they just struggle probably with that last bit, that last dose of quality, that last pass, that last bit of connection. And that is the bit that obviously for season 2 of this needs to be significantly improved. And I genuinely believe if that bit happens, I probably feel this really off the back of the last few weeks, stronger than I ever have probably at any point this season. But I really feel like Norwich are not far away. And of course, you can be not far away and be a million miles away at the same time. But this is a really crucial point for them, and a really crucial juncture for them, obviously, this summer, and making sure that they inject some creativity into this team. They streamline probably some of those players that feel like they've been here for too long, played probably too much, and we don't fit with what they want to do. I think there needs to be a ruthlessness in terms of how they do that. And it's going to be another turning of the wheel, another turning of the cycle. And, I've seen enough this season to know that Norwich City in their best moments can produce the sort of exciting attacking football that we've seen here this season. They've won games comprehensively. They've looked brilliant doing it. And it's probably the flaw in that, it's one clean sheet here this season. You're not going to do anything when those are the stats. Their away form hasn't been good enough, although I think we've seen strides in terms of the performances over the the last few weeks. So I do think there are positives. I do think there have been positives this season. And, to be honest, I think Norwich are probably slightly higher in the table than I anticipated them to be at the start of the season. And they've done that really with a lot against them. And whether you believe it's bad luck, whether you believe it's stuff that could have been prevented, either way, I think 32 of the 36 games they've played this season, they've been able to name unchanged team. I mean, that's ridiculous. They've had 18, 19 different midfield combinations. When you're trying to build a possession style of play, it's very difficult to achieve any sort of consistency in that. And of course, Johannes Torp has made mistakes in that as well. In terms of his selection, in terms of some of the ways that Norwich City have approached games, in terms of maybe how they've not grasped issues as well. So it's not to completely say that he's completely devoid of any blame or responsibility for maybe the lack of nous and naivety. But you've got to remember, he's an incredibly young coach as well. I think we've seen Norwich City at their very best, a team with really good potential, really high potential, and at their worst, probably a team that is inconsistent and sluggish and stodgy. And you can watch games, I think, a lot, and you watch Norwich pass the ball from centre back to centre back to goalkeeper, and you do wonder when they're going to create a chance again. And the way they've played this year is often their best moments have come when it's almost been a little bit transitional for them, where teams have come and pressed them, and they've been able to play through teams and create those kind of false counter-attacking moments. And what we've seen over the last 4 games is probably teams come here, barring Stoke. I mean, what Stoke did here was an absolute madness in comparison, really, when you look at the success that Derby had and Oxford had in terms of coming and playing a back 5, putting men behind the ball, really frustrating, blocking off those central avenues and getting Norwich to go wider to put crosses on into the box. I mean, they've scored 7 set pieces. It's the lowest percentage of set pieces scored taken in the EFL this season, and that is a result, obviously, of the type of team that they're trying to build in terms of technical players. So, yeah, look, I think this now, it is probably it's not impossible, of course. They could still do it, but I think there's too many now things that need to happen, that need to shift in their favour for Norwich City to reach the top 6. And that's a shame, but it probably felt like we were going to get there. I think when you're looking at 2 home games in a row saying you probably need maximum points to keep it alive, we're probably already at that stage. And there have probably just been too many opportunities. And ultimately, you look at the league table, it's the draws that I think that have killed them rather than the defeats. And this one tonight is another frustrating one. So there we go. The beauty of this league is obviously that you get to go again, and they will get to go again on Tuesday, hopefully to produce a response to this, hopefully with some players back, hopefully with a bit more positivity in their play. That's not going to be an easy game, but I'd expect Sheffield Wednesday to come here and be a little bit more expansive as well. So, yeah, that's probably my feelings at this moment in time. Pinker.com, of course, the place to go. Plenty more analysis, reaction. You can read Johannes Torp's thoughts on tonight. There'll be Callum Fisher as well in the morning. We'll have the podcast, all the usual stuff throughout the afternoon. And we'll be back here on Tuesday night for Wednesday. See you then. Thank you very much for watching.